school, desk, village. The nurse said, I am going to give you 3 little words now, and later I'm going to ask you what those 3 words are. Get this. Throughout the week, after I was in that doctor's office, no one, that whole time I was in there, no one asked me what those 3 words were. A week later, I'm walking around saying, somebody asked me, school, desk, village. And then, at the time, as I was sitting there, I thought, hey, wait a minute. My mom, who's 85 years old, told me that this is what the nurse does when she visits the doctor once a year. Mom said, oh, honey, this is what they do to help identify if you have memory problems when you get older. Well, this experience was shocking to me. I mean, I'm not old, right? Older, but not old. In a book that I've been reading, devouring, I have to tell you, it's called Hospicing Modernity, Facing Humanity's Wrongs and the Implications for Social Activism. It's by Vanessa Machado de Oliveira. She is of German and indigenous heritage. So the author in this book describes stages of life as mountains. On the day I went to the doctor, I became profoundly aware that I was struggling to climb the 4th mountain. So the author shared these stages from the Cree tradition, as originally told to her by a Cree elder named John Cryer in 2015. So this is the thing. She says she was given permission to travel with the story and even to write it down. Oliveira said it describes how indigenous education is fundamentally about preparing people from the day they are born to become good leaders and ancestors for all relations. The author wrote, before I start, I need to remind you that in indigenous storytelling, stories are living entities that can lead our hearts, and land in our hearts if we let them, and they dance with us. This dance can be short or long, she says. It can also last a whole lifetime. Don't you love the visual image of dancing with stories? It's just beautiful. I spoke with a member this week, Bill Doherty, last week before he died, and he talked about his love of the book Oliver's Travels. The story was still dancing for him all those years after he read it as a child. What story has landed in your heart and still dances there? So, to move on, the story I'm about to describe involves, as I said, 4 mountains, each mountain representing a stage in a person's life. There's a baby mountain, a warrior mountain, a hunter-provider mountain, and an elder mountain. If all is in balance, the author says, the land, the ancestors, all relations will support the human people as each person moves from one mountain to the other. So notice the characters in this story that I'm sharing with you this morning. The land is a living entity. The ground we walk, a living entity. The ancestors, the heritage that we have. And all human relations, they may not be related to us by blood, but they are in the fact that we are a human species related to one another simply by that fact. According to the Cree, and frankly, many other indigenous traditions, humans, like other beings, do not own their time or their life. It is a more powerful force that holds this, called the Great Spirit or the Creator. And that Great Spirit or Creator decides the length of time we will travel through life and the visions we will receive that helps us determine how we will use the gifts that we came to this life with. The author writes, some people are meant to travel only so far through the mountains. They may complete their journey early for different reasons. Sometimes, she mentions, with babies, for example, the time is not right for them to stay, but they still come to visit their families for a bit as a gift. I had to spend a few days with that thought. Every new life, whether it makes it to adulthood or not, is a gift. So the baby mountain, you are carried, says the author, up this mountain in a bundle that strengthens the connection between your baby body and the collective bodies around you. Isn't it wonderful to have baby bodies in front of us every Sunday? So this baby bodies, the best way for them to grow is to have wise and healthy grandparents, parents, aunties and uncles, an extended family, if you will. We have a huge role to play in this baby mountain. And when we are not there to assist little ones in a community of love, it's very difficult. Sometimes babies can't make it to the other side, says the author. Learning that you are part of creation and cared for and guided by people when you're little, when you're guided by the land, the ancestors, and all relations, that makes you feel in your bones from when you are little that you have intrinsic value. So as a side note here, in our Unitarian Universalist meeting places, we have a ritual. I know some of you say, what rituals do we have? Well, one of them is a baby blessing or a naming ceremony. In it, along with the parents, the gathered affirm through recitation our commitment to support the growing child. It's a powerful, moving ceremony. Now, going from the baby mountain, one goes to the warrior mountain. This is the mountain where you find your unique gifts, says the author, the unique medicines you bring that you will eventually use to assist others. When society is in turmoil, however, it is the young people starting to climb this mountain who feel the consequences the most because they have not yet established boundaries. They have unbound energy, and since they are seeking and learning about self-rule, they also tend to push back against guidance and advice. As young people look for their path on their own, they sometimes end up on the wrong path, especially when guidance and support is not available. On this mountain, you also need to meet and wrestle with your shadows. Think back of your younger years. On the way up, it's like going through a very thick forest in the dark, in the middle of the night with a half moon and stars barely visible. The trees can see your spirit. They know who you are. You are so self-absorbed sometimes to listen to anything that others may tell you. The role of the land, however, on that journey up this mountain is as a teacher, to introduce you to the mystery of your existence. It can give you directions, usually in the form of visions and songs, but it won't give you the final answer for everything you seek at this point. In this last quote, the author emphasizes the need to pause, to sit in nature. It's funny because I was looking at the order of service, and The first listing was, I've Got Peace by a River. I'm like, I don't remember the song being titled that way. It's peace like a river. And yet, this morning's sermon, when the land is a teacher, we could be reminded to sit by the ocean, to sit by a river, to sit in the food forest, to sit outside, to listen to what the land has to tell you. The author says the part of this mountain path can be frustrating because your body has energy to run, but the ground is uneven, requiring you to walk slowly in order to develop patience. So those going up this mountain, she says, often spend a lot of time fighting with the shadows of the trees. It's like trying to find your medicine, your gift, as a needle in a haystack. Do some of you remember what it was like in your early years? How hard it was. Many fears and insecurities show up in this process. Fear of being worthy, fear of not finding the right answer. What should I do with my life? Fear of missing out. What are other people doing? Fear of humiliation. I did it wrong. Fear of rejection and abandonment. Fear of loss, pain, and death. Fear of making wrong choices. Fear that life may not be worth living. Fear that your life is a mistake. Fear of ineptitude and inadequacy. There was an old movie several years ago, I've forgotten the title of it, but it was about a young woman and an older man. I don't know if they were neighbors, elderly man, but lightning came down and struck them both at the same time. When the lightning struck, her soul went into his body. His soul went into her body. At the first part of it, the old man was like, yippee! I don't hurt, my knees don't make noises when I bend, woohoo! Soon, however, he was overcome by how fast the world was and how many decisions had to be made suddenly and how he wasn't sure what choices he was making were the right ones. He felt insecure constantly. When another lightning bolt hit, the two switched back to their old bodies, and the man was so grateful to have his, he described it like, quote, a worn coat that fits me so well. Back to the book. On this warrior mountain, mountain of youth, if you manage to quiet your spirit and become humble before the land, you may be contacted by the spirits, according to this old Cree legend, who may have known and observed you, the spirits who know what you need, maybe, and the next step you must take, and the seedlings of the gifts and medicines you have inside you. So on the way down this mountain, you develop familiarity and closeness with your gifts and your medicine. You learn as much as possible about them, and this feels really good in a surprising way. So I'm thinking about young people entering and graduating from college or trade school who finally happen upon a vocation, maybe one they hadn't expected. Do you remember entering a vocation that you had not expected? The next one is the hunter-provider mountain. The rite of passage of this mountain is about seeing a much bigger picture, about seeing more than the picture is showing you as well. Not the past, not the future. It's also about learning to use your medicines and gifts to contribute toward the well-being of your family, of the community, of the human family, and all relations. On this mountain, you are learning to be both confident and humble, both autonomous and accountable, to be generous and to not allow your generosity to be exploited, to take things seriously and yet to be able to laugh at yourself, to learn quickly from your mistakes and only make new mistakes as you move to the next learning, to apologize for the suffering you have caused, and to not increase other people's suffering as much as you can. To be accountable to the human and non-human lives that sacrifice themselves to keep you alive, says the author. It is in this time in the mountain when you may be ready to mentor others who have similar medicines and gifts as your own, so that they don't have to repeat the mistakes you made yourself. As you see your medicines and gifts from a different perspective, feeling insignificant at times, you feel the opposite because you see the miracle and beauty in small things, including yourself. You start to hear the songs that move everything, the seasons, the waters, the winds, the clouds, the plants, ourselves and other animals, the cycles of life, death, and renewal. You notice the rhythms and the movements that transform everything around you. If there is a word for this, it is aware. The sky and the stars speak with you differently. You experience time differently. Although you have already been told that everything interconnected, you have seen glimpses of it. This time is not just a glimpse. You can't turn it off. You're ready for the elder mountain when you get to this point, but you will say that you're not ready. You're not ready for the elder mountain, which is a sign from the Creed tradition that you are ready. When I read the author's description of the mountain, I thought, this is a big one. Perhaps it will be arriving for many people in their 30s, through their 50s or early 60s, perhaps raising young people this period of time, perhaps raising young people and then transitioning when they go to college, perhaps experiencing long careers and approaching retirement. Perhaps that's when this is. Remember the story I shared about myself in the beginning? I'm not ready for the elder mountain. And yet, I suspect I'm getting closer. So what about this elder mountain? You become a teacher or good guide for others, just simply being yourself. But you also revisit different teachings you received in your life, and those teachings will show you deeper lessons. If you're open to it, to learning new skills and approaches to assisting others. Since there is no book with an encyclopedia of directions, the author said, you can give to those who need help. You will need to learn to support people, however, with where they are. This is such an important lesson, right? So many of us want to coerce others to behave in a manner that accommodate our wishes. Oh, I know this would be best for you. And then when the person doesn't follow the guidance, we stand back and go, I told so-and-so not to do that, and look, did they listen to me? No, now they will suffer. Avoid this thought pattern. Love, humility, and compassion. These are the flowers to be harvested on the elder mountain. The author wrote, you will pass down your own experience of climbing, especially what you have learned from the mistakes you have made as you were finding your direction. However, like the trees in the warrior mountain, you cannot tell people directly what their purpose or direction should be. This is between them and the Great Spirit, say the Creed tradition, and they need to find it for themselves through their connection with the land, there it is again, and with all relations. This is important, otherwise they will not have the energy or the confidence to keep going. Elders are particularly suited to carry the babies, by the way. Unlike the warriors, they have patience. Unlike the hunter-providers, they have time. Both babies and elders, so the Creed tradition says, are close to the ancestors and the source of life beyond form. How do you like that? Many of us are ready to assist babies and the littles, even the youngsters who arrive here every Sunday. Would you like to fulfill your journey on the elder mountain of being with the littles? This is my plug, my commercial again for wouldn't it be lovely to go next door when the children leave? I know you don't have to sit on the floor. You can sit in a chair, but just know that at any minute your hands are going to be dripping with crayons and dripping with glue. But you will have a smile on your face, and that's all you have to do. when a little one looks over at you and you smile. That is it. Okay, I digress. Here's the final point about the elder mountain. No one reaches the top carrying their own body. Only your spirit reaches the top. Perhaps some of us are both relieved and a little hesitant to give up the body. The author says, you're grateful for what you have been taught in this body. You have settled what needs to be settled. You have prepared your family. You have passed down your stories and your songs. The people you have mentored have become mentors themselves. You have helped people to switch mountains, and you're at peace with the enormity and timelessness and incessant movement of the land. You know, you've heard the proverbial, everything's shifted suddenly. It's the land shifting in our journey experiences. So I wonder what you were thinking about these 4 mountains this morning, this indigenous story. I have to admit, as a true UU, sometimes known as a spiritual skeptic, it's true. I question everything I'm told. That's part of my journey. And yet I love this story. It has so much resonance for me, especially when the land becomes a character. I've never thought of the land as a living entity in the same way that it has come across in this story. Yes, I love this story, and I can relate to much of what has been shared. It's beautiful, and it's poetic. So much truth. And then I came across another idea pertaining to life stages. For example, it's interesting to note in about the mountain stages, it could be chronological ages or maybe not. Maybe it has to do with how you were when you were born. Maybe the attributes aren't about the years of existence, but have to do with how each person arrived here. For example, there's an Oromo story from the Ethiopia that talks about how eldership is not about age, but about white hair. In this story, there are 3 different kinds of elders. I know everybody's reaching up their head, right? In this story, there's an elder with white hair on the head who have been through a lot. There are elders with white hair on their feet who have walked a lot and seen a lot. And there are elders with gray hair in their heart who may have been born that way. So consider this. Just this week, I talked to 2 parents. I heard 2 parents reference their young boys as little men. One said, her 13-year-old, she said, I asked so-and-so, my 13-year-old son, if he was going to play with the friends he had last year. And he said, oh, no, Mom, they're so immature. And this parent says, my child has been an old man since birth. She said, he is wise beyond his years. He teaches me so much about perceptions of life experiences that seem to be far nuanced than his young years. Do you know someone that has been an elder from birth? So the reason I've been intrigued with these life stages and wanted to bring it to you this morning was because I too am concerned with what's happening in American society and all the struggles with inequity, with greed, and the disregard for the climate. The hardships we are witnessing and maybe encountering for some of us, I too ask, what can one person, one faith community, one small group of people do? Well, after poring over hospicing modernity, facing humanity's wrongs, and the implications for social action, I remain mindful of a few points the author made. Yes, about life stages and our responsibility to share our gifts, what we can. But it's also the constant need to practice healing for ourselves and others. To perpetually adopt a radical tenderness for ourselves and for others. To unlearn society's messages from modernity, such as the idea that a physical body that is thin, that is white, that is able-bodied, that's more important than other bodies that aren't as able-bodied or that aren't white. This is important. And that arrogance, the idea that my ideas are better than others, well, that might well be the perpetuation of colonization. Perhaps my role, our role, as we reach out and move along our journeys up and down the mountains of experience. By the way, you can go back to another mountain by accident and go back and forth. This mountain of experience is to fill the metaphorical backpack with a trinity of attributes, such as humility, self-reflection, and gratitude for all the little gifts along the way. May it be so, and thank you for pausing to listen to these words. I hope you'll think on it all week long. Blessed be, and amen.